What is going on, RotoGrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 7904 if you want to get all technical. I mean, it's 5:31 on the East Coast. I have some technical issues. My bad. That's why I'm especially white. 2:31 on the West Coast, 4:31 Tennessee time, which, of course, means it's time for the flagship show here at RotoGrinders. It's called Grinderslive. And joining me today, we're bringing the old gang back together. By the way, Grant will be thirsty because he lost another bet. If you're keeping score at home, he's now 0 for 2. Cardi's doing victory laps pre-show. Grant, you brought another very masculine beverage to the chug, yes?
Yes, it is Dragon Fruit Colorado Craft Hard Seltzer. Crafted in Colorado by hand, apparently.
How's your basketball going, by the way? Are you playing some basketball DFS?
Oh, yeah, I am. Am I winning? I won money yesterday. I literally just went to Optimizer. I'm like, there's overlay. Just threw in 50 lineups because I was worried about baseball. But it looks like I'm winning a decent amount of money right now.
Yeah. Well, I only asked because I wanted you to ask back, but you did not reciprocate. You don't play well.
No one cares. I'm Dean. I type it first with thousands of other people.
Officially, this is no lies detected. Officially, I won a Millie Maker in the history in DFS. That happened. And I'm still back here today. You think I'd be like an Aruba, having like a Mai Tai or something like that? Nope. I'm here. I'm a working man. Put my 2 weeks in, though. That's it. We're retired. A Millie Maker winner. But, Cardi, how about yourself? How's basketball going for you? Is Cardi with us? He probably heard basketball and said, screw
and he gone.
Yeah, I'm here. What's going on? Guys, I don't know if you realize there are baseball games tonight. We got more important stuff to discuss here.
We got to talk about Dabnak.
Well, we'll talk about Dabnak in a second. Grant, I know you're betting some winners. Give us some. Do you have any sharp side winners for tonight? I know you're in Colorado. You can legally wager on these baseball games, on basketball games, and all sorts of maybe cornhole. I'm not really sure what's available there. I'm in a state that currently does not offer it. But give us some sharp side winners tonight. I know we've been doing well. First show, we were 3-0. I don't know what our score was last game, to be honest. But give me some winners in the sharp side app.
Texas and Colorado. Go Rockies! Coors Field.
What a homer. Do you have any, you want to see those? You want to confirm those, Cardi? You want to disagree? You have any yourself? Any winners tonight as far as a Vegas perspective?
Yeah, I mean, if I was betting Colorado, I'd bet the Padres side. But my best bet tonight, I think, is the Kansas City money line. Kansas City is, I mean, we're going to get into it, but I'm pretty optimistic about this KC pitcher. I think, White Sox may be a little overrated. I just think there's a lot of value on that line,
Yeah, you're so optimistic. You might actually, this is a tease, but you might be considering playing this Chris Bubik character in cash. Is he in play as an SP2 today?
I mean, that's not a tease, Dean. You just completely you just gave it all away.
Well, all right. Good night, everybody.
Okay, we don't even need analysts on here.
Feel free to like and subscribe on your way out.
You heard it, guys. Play Bubik in cash games. You can tune out now.
Cardi, tell them about the Bat X, of course, new and improved, and you're going to be screen sharing throughout, so you're going to be showing the Bat off a good bit. Tell them what they're missing out on if they've not yet to subscribe to the Bat.
Yeah, I mean, the Bat is my projection system. It's been at RotoGrinders for a few years. Users love it. We had one guy win the FanDuel Millie Maker on opening day. We've had a lot of people do
thanks to
well.
my analysis.
I mean, maybe a little, but also due to the Bat.
I was on that show too, just throwing it out there.
No one cares about you, Dean.
Well, I mean, look, this is something me and this person, we can have a conversation. We have something in common. We both won a Millie Maker. But go ahead, Cardi.
Yeah, I mean, it accounts for everything that, affects what happens on a baseball field. Umpires and defensive positioning and pitch framing and weather. And this year it incorporates StatCast data, which is really cool. If you haven't tried it out yet, we have daily subscriptions. We have monthly subscriptions. Give it a shot. It's well worth it.
All right. Like, subscribe. You're watching us on the YouTube. We're going to do our best to knock out the questions on YouTube. And you guys, we're going to be talking pitchers in a second. So if you have any pitcher-related questions, I'll do my best to get to those. Of course, we'll talk hitters later, and we'll try and save some time. It is a big slate, a 12-gamer, the biggest one I think we've discussed this year. That said, overall, big picture as far as this slate, Grant, it's, again, 12 games. There's a Coors Field game. It's a big number. 2 pretty good pitchers, but still big number, 11.5, I think the last we saw as far as the total. How are you attacking the slate before we break it down as far as a pitcher perspective?
Bubik lock button.
That's it? He can't play every position. He's not Jose Kendo.
You can. No, I think this is a stat.
It's like Bugs Bunny. Haven't you heard about this guy? He's just going to run around the field. He's going to play literally it's going to happen.
He has a similar change up to Bugs Bunny.
He does.
Cardi?
Yeah, But this is a good stacking slate. Like, there are lots of high team totals on the board here. I don't think you need to go too far off the board unless you're going into big field tournaments. But like, what you see is what you get. I have, I think, one off the radar stack, or maybe two, and that's it. Like, this is a slate with a lot of very good options that you don't need to go to that far off the board.
They're asking about Bundy in chat. Were you not on Bundy yesterday? He gave a 3-run homer in the first, but he did an amazing job salvaging. I was on him. Were you on him as well?
I'm fairly certain that I was on him. Wait, are you talking to me or Cardi?
Well, they're talking to you specifically, so I thought you knew it was coming to you. But
I had a lot of Bundy. I actually had some Mariners stacks on certain sites that won a little bit of money.
Look at you.
Yeah, I'm kind of a big deal.
Cardi, this slate, again, Coors Field, 11.5 as far as the total. It's a weird slate where, I don't know how much we need at Coors. We'll kind of work our way through it, obviously. And you're already talking about an SB2. It's cheap. So there are some bats you want to spend up on. Before we tackle as far as the pitchers, give me the overall picture of this slate.
Yeah, I mean, the overall picture is kind of like Grant said. There's a lot of offense to like on this slate outside of one pitcher. None of them really profile that well. And I think at least in cash games, your decision is kind of going to come down to, are you going to pay up for one of these, good pitchers that aren't really in a great spot, or are you okay just outright punting pitcher to be able to get more of the big offensive bats, because there's value at pitcher and there's some value at hitter. And I think most people are going to lean towards the value at hitter, but I think the superior value is going with the cheap pitcher.
Cardi, we have to start, especially from a DK perspective. They got to start with Luis Castillo. For whatever reason, he's 8K, which is just a misprice. He should probably be, 5 figures, around 10K. Certainly a better play than Snell, but that's a different conversation because he's on a pitch count, and I don't really know how you can justify that roster spot for Snell, who might throw about 65, 70 pitches, give or take. Let's start at Luis Castillo. How is he not your SP1 on DK at 8K? I assume he's the first guy in for you.
Yeah, he has to be. In GPPs, you can think about fading him, depending on the rest of your lineup. But in cash games, he's the best pitcher on the slate by 5 points, and he's only 8K. He's against, a bad strikeout-heavy Tigers offense. It's like, just play Castillo. If you're not playing him in cash games, you are doing something very, very wrong.
Yeah, Grant, you coming up from more of a tournament perspective. Do you have any interest in the Tigers as leverage? Just maybe a stay away, being underweight as far as that number? Because, again, he's going to be massively owned. What are you doing with it?
I mean, in big field tournaments, you can go with the Tigers. I'm not a huge fan. I'll use a bit of Castillo, but he's going to be so heavily owned over on DK. And it's not like I'm going to be hurting for salary at all using Bubik. So I'm probably going to go a little bit heavier on Clevenger. Like, he's got a tough matchup, but he went 90 pitches his last outing. Castillo can get into a little bit of trouble. He's obviously a guy that in the past has struggled with his control a bit. He's got a 10% walk rate last year. So anytime you get a guy with that much control issues, even if against a team that doesn't walk a ton, it can cause a little bit of a problem here. So when you're getting 45% ownership on a guy where you can easily pivot to a guy like Clevenger, I think it's a good move. Or even go over to Yu Darvish. Like, there's any number of top price guys that could easily outscore him. So in tournaments, I'm going to largely fade Castillo, I think.
Cardi, I know you're going to go Castillo and a cheapie. We'll talk about cheapie in a second. But in the vacuum and the Hoover, what do you have for me? You got Darvish or you have Clevenger?
The bet likes Darvish a little bit more. He's, 500 more expensive. I really don't think you can go wrong either way, like if you're just trying to be different in a GPP. But, I mean, looking at the ownership here, Clevenger is projected, I guess, at 23% and Darvish at 4%. And Darvish projects 1.5 higher in the bat. So Darvish would, I think, clearly be the play once you consider, the leverage of the ownership.
What does the bat say? I'm not looking at it right now because I can only have so many pages up because my internet's funky. Hopefully that'll get cleared up soon enough. My issue between those two is I feel like Clevenger can throw 20 more pitches than Darvish. What do we have as far as the projections for pitch count, Darvish versus Clevenger?
We can pull that up, actually. So
20 is a big number. Obviously, there's a variance, but I just feel like in theory, it's possible Clevenger can throw 105 and Darvish can throw 85.
Yeah, so it looks like Darvish is being capped at 94 pitches. He didn't go as deep in his first start. Clevenger should basically be unrestricted. His max is 110, but Clevenger's facing the tougher offense. So he probably isn't going to pitch well enough to get to 110. Whereas Darvish is facing the Pirates. He's going to throw as many pitches as his arm is going to allow him to throw. And so ultimately, Darvish is projected for 94 pitches, Clevinger for 92, because, Clevinger is projected to not do as well. So, even though Clevinger has the longer leash, maybe the higher upside, they should wind up pretty similar. And again, the ownership.
Yeah, I feel like Darvish is a tick safer against that Pittsburgh lineup, but the upside is the Clevinger side. We saw what Bieber did last night. Of course, they're different pitchers, but Clevinger likewise has 33% K rate the last 2 seasons. You're picking one. Who do you have for me, Grant, as far as Darvish versus Clevinger?
I mean, if we're incorporating ownership, it's probably Darvish, but I'm using both of them.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess you make a bunch of lineups. You're talking about the Chibi. You're possibly double barreling with those two. You're saying.
I mean, yeah, I'll use both of them. I'll still use a bit of Castillo, but I mean, there's a decent chance I lock button in Bubik, and so if I do that, then I'm probably going to have like 35% Clevinger and Darvish, and then just sprinkle in whatever pitcher fits into my lineups afterwards, which is probably going to be Castillo.
They're asking about Manaea in the chat. 9.6K on DK. I think that's a little bit too expensive. On FanDuel, I like his price, a little bit more appealing. Carter, you jump in here. Manaea working our way down. Minor in San Francisco. You touched on it a few days ago as far as the San Francisco ballpark and how the ball's been jumping, the fences have been moved in, and I think the over just keeps hitting every single night. Of course,
if you've been betting that over, you've been doing real well. And it doesn't seem like Vegas is really adjusting. Like I'd hit the over on that game again today.
Yeah.
It's not moving, but the ball is clearly flying out of there.
Yeah, but it's 2 bad offenses. Obviously, the total is just 8. At least that's what I'm seeing as far as the total in RG right now. Talk to me about Mike Minor. Are we afraid of Mike Minor pitching in San Fran because of the ballpark all of a sudden? Of course, those hitters are still terrible, but again, we've seen the ball jump. The asking price is a little bit pricey, but he's another guy that can go 100 pitches, which is nice. I like that upside. Minor versus Manaea. You have a separator there, Cardi?
The bat likes Minor, but again, I've made only a very rudimentary adjustment for this park. It's possible that I haven't adjusted it like enough to be more hitter friendly. But Minor is, I don't know, probably the guy I would go with. I really don't love either of them. Like I think where you're going to differentiate yourself with pitcher tonight is with these cheaper guys. We've talked about Bubich, but there's a couple others that I think you can throw into your mix. And especially with how much high-end offense there is. I think I'd rather those kinds of builds than this mid-range where the guys are all, a little overpriced, not really projecting that well, not really in great spots. I think that's probably the roster construction I would prefer tonight.
Grant, you have a take there, or you want to pass as well and just say like that you just don't like this area and you're going to move on?
I don't hate Minor. Like if he fits, I'll throw him in. Like if I don't have enough to go up to Darvish or to Clevinger and I have too much left over from Castillo, I'll go with Minor. Like he's the guy that I prefer of the two. Manaea, I don't know how late he's going to go into the game. I think his last start he had 55 pitches thrown. He pitched well, and he's obviously got a fantastic matchup going up against the Mariners here. But he's still 9.6K, and I would assume is going to be on a pretty strict pitch count. So I don't see him going that late into the game. Minor, on the other hand, may go 100 pitches. Like, yes, San Francisco is a tough ballpark now, it looks like, but the dude pitched in Texas last year. Are we really worried about him pitching in tough ballparks?
Yeah, no, that's a reasonable point. And this is the tricky one for me, Cardi. I know you want to talk about the guys that are cheaper, but for my personal lineups, I'm sure some people out there are considering them. I'm a McCullers guy, and I feel like we talked preseason. I think you're a McCullers guy as well, too.
I love McCullers. McCullers is like my favorite pitcher in baseball.
Okay, so why are we not playing McCullers tonight? Mike Trout's having a baby. Well, his wife's having a baby. He's there for moral support and all that.
You don't know it's not a junior situation.
Well, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. Trout would have been showing, I imagine. I don't know the science of it, but Cardi, the 20-year-olds have no clue what we're talking about, Grant. Just so you know, what's junior? It's a terrible Schwarzenegger movie.
It's fantastic, and it's a great Danny DeVito movie.
It's not good. Oh, geez. Cardi, if you have a thought on Junior, feel free. But if you love McCullers, he's facing the Angels without the best player in all of baseball. That lineup is not good. There's some contact guys, which is somewhat concerning. Rendon's, of course, really solid.
That's one of the big problems. Like, if you look at the strikeout rate for the lineup, it's like one of the lower ones of the day, 22% strikeout rate for the lineup combined. So that's like part of the problem, I think. And even though there's no Trout, there are still dangerous bats in the lineup. As an Astros pitcher, McCullers' leash is never like super long. But I do think you can go with him. Like if I wasn't going to play a cheap pitcher, if I was going to like spend up at my SP2 spot, it would probably be with McCullers. I just like the cheaper guys and the value they present more.
I did like seeing 92 pitches, 6 innings his first start. That was encouraging. I'll take 92 pitches. That's pretty positive. He tends to labor sometimes. I saw Cheese was talking about in his article today. He was throwing a lot of breakers. I know he's got a nasty curveball.
I mean, that's what he does. He throws his curveball 50% of the time. That's one of the big reasons why he's so good, because the curveball is so elite, and he just throws it more than anyone else throws their curveball.
Best curve in baseball?
Best curve in baseball for sure. When he's healthy. I didn't get to see it in his first start. Like he's coming off Tommy John. Maybe it's not quite as sharp, but when he's healthy, it's definitely the best.
What about Bubik? Does he not have the best curve in baseball?
Well, he
I
just
don't think I would put him in that category.
I love Zach Gallen, but for me, it's not today. I suppose in tournaments you can run him out there, but I don't want to pick on the Dodgers. Perfectly fine if you want to do that in tournaments at a small percent. Not going to discourage it. I like Gray. I think Richards is a solid pitcher, but in cores, I don't think it's so necessary. You can in tournaments. But I guess we stalled long enough. Grant, who wants to talk about Bubik?
He's not that great, but he's not that terrible. Is that good analysis there?
That is excellent analysis.
Big K rate in the minors.
He did all right in the minors. I think he only played A+ though. Like he had decent strikeout stuff. He doesn't project as a great pitcher, but he's going up against these White Sox bats. He throws a curve and a changeup fastball. That's his combination, which kind of leads to a bit of reverse splits. So going up against a lineup that has 9 righties in it, everyone's a righty. I have to assume that he's going to have a larger than normal K rate going up against them. There's a ton of strikeouts in that lineup. Like you look at it versus lefties, and it's a little bit different than what it is versus righties. Like going up against lefties, I think their current lineup has projected 25% K rate, which is high. Going up against righties, their current lineup has a 26.5% K rate. Like all the way up and down the board, tons of strikeouts here. He's a lefty that should be a reverse splits guy. He's not good, but he's 4K. I don't care. I'm rolling with him.
He's young. I believe he's number 5, number 6 in the organization for Kansas City. Add on to that, Cardi. Sell me rostering this dude in cash. I mean, obviously, you just want to get a couple extra bats. Is at the point you think he's going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, so Grant's right. He should profile as a little bit of a reverse splits guy. He did show that reverse split in the minors. That's going to help him against all these righties. It is a strikeout-friendly lineup. It's a decent lineup. It's not a bad one. So there's, it's not like a no-risk play. Like this is a guy who hasn't thrown a single pitch above high A. He never pitched in double A, never pitched in triple A. But he's not one of these like, raw prospects that's going to come up and be walking the world and really struggling. Like he's polished, as polished as you can be for having never pitched in the upper levels. The bat projects him as a league average pitcher right now because he did dominate at the lower levels. And so I don't mind him in this spot, between the strikeout matchup, between the price, and between him probably being an okay pitcher. That's kind of enough at 4K. I mean, it's not like he's setting the world on fire with his projection. It's like 12 points. But 12 points at 4K is 3 times value. And on a slate where we have, Coors really high, Yankees really high, Astros really high, I think the Mets-Braves game is probably going to wind up being pretty high. Like, there's just a lot to like on offense that he opens so much up for you. It's tough to pass up. And especially, like, I don't think we've touched on it once this show, but like if this was yesterday's slate, you wouldn't be playing Bubik because everyone was free on hitting. Like you just didn't need a cheap pitcher. The prices, there's still a few guys that are, too low, that are mispriced. But the prices in general have gone up today, making a guy like this a lot more viable than he would have been at any point in the past week.
Weather looks pretty positive in Kansas City for pitching. I pulled up Kevin Ross Weather Edge, which is a part of the RG package. I believe you can buy it a la carte if you want to as well. But what it does is it gives you like-minded games, similar conditions. It has nothing to do with who's playing the game, nothing to do with who's pitching, nothing to do with who's hitting. But in 122 similar games with this similar weather, home runs have decreased at 9.2%, runs have decreased at 4.5%, and ERA has decreased by 6.3%. So positive weather there as well. Now, there is a little bit of concern. Go ahead.
No, it's like mid-70s with some wind blowing in from center. So it is definitely on the pitching-friendly side relative to the rest of the slate.
Yeah, a lot of power on that Chicago side for what it's worth. I mean, the ISO is kind of jumping off the page if you pull up the plate IQ. So I don't mind Chicago as a bit of a stack if you want to go the other way on it. But I hear what you guys are saying. People in chat were talking about this, and I thought it was kind of sort of at least worth noting. It's a revenge game too, I believe, Cardi. Alex Cobb is also 4K.
Yeah, he is. The ownership projection on him is a lot higher than I was expecting. He's like, Jamino's got him projected as the 5th highest owned guy on the slate at 14%. I'll be really surprised if the gap between him and Bubic, who's projected at like less than 1%, is that wide. But I mean, I was kind of expecting Cobb to be sneaky and the guy that you would pivot off of Bubic onto at lower ownership in GPPs. You know, if he's going to be 14% owned, maybe I have less interest in him, but I'd be surprised if he winds up that high. I don't know. Maybe I'm off there. But yeah, like he's a guy who used to be really, really good. Then he had Tommy John, was never the same. But reports out of camp this spring was that he was starting to look a little bit like his old self. Like I think there's some upside here. This Rays lineup is extremely strikeout heavy, 26.3%, the most strikeout heavy offense on this slate for Cobb. So I think there's good bats in the lineup. It's not like he's a slam dunk, but he's 4K. And so if you do think his ownership comes in lower than that, then I think he's, you know, a really good GPP play.
Yeah, solid as first start as well. Grant, your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on any other pitchers we haven't talked about? Logan Webb is kind of sort of somewhat interesting at 6.1K, and like I'd be much more interested if like that ballpark played like it did last year. That Texas lineup's not terribly scary, 6.1K, but again, who knows what kind of funkiness is going on there in San Fran? And Webb's not great; he's just sort of meh. Grant, your thoughts as far as the dude pitching for Baltimore, Cobb, or anybody else that's worth a mention?
I think we pretty much. I'm fine with Cobb. Like I prefer Bubic, but Cobb's fine. I'm currently creating a lineup that's a double stack with the Rockies with Cobb and Bubic.
Oh, you can probably have a lot of fun with those two guys. 8K in your total pitchers.
I'm gonna end up with a lot of money left on the board. I think.
What do you have per stick? Like, can you spend it all?
5.7 per stick.
Yeah.
You're not spending all that. That's one way to be different.
Yeah, that's something you can do. Grant, summarize the arms, and then Cardi, you do the same.
Bubic, lock button outside of a few hedge White Sox stacks. And then honestly pivot off of Castillo in tournaments, use Castillo for cash. The pivots off of Castillo are going to be Darvish, Clevenger, and probably McCullers.
Cardi?
Yeah, play Castillo in cash, and then you're probably either playing McCullers or Bubic with him. Like Grant said, you can pivot off in GPPs. If Bubic is going to be that low owned, you should have a lot of him in GPPs. You can also throw in some Cobb. You can throw in some, Darvish, Minor, whoever you want.
Hey, Cardi, I know you play more DK than you do FanDuel. Do you happen to have in front of you as far as just one pitcher in FanDuel? Castillo's 10K. He's not 8K.
I think it's still Castillo over there because even though he's so egregiously priced on DraftKings, he's still the best pitcher by a lot today, even before you consider price. So over on FanDuel, he's still the guy.
Yeah, I was kind of going back and forth, but he's probably the guy I'm going to land on as well in my main lineups. That's it for arms. Let's talk bats. Let's talk catchers specifically. Grant, open it up. What do you like as far as backstops tonight?
I will open it up then. I was finishing up my lineup though.
You were not prepared. This is your first show after the arms. What do you think?
I was finishing up my lineup, sir. If you want to just full on
defense.
Yeah, if you want to just full on punt, Moltenado is not a bad decision. Salvador Perez is a little bit underpriced still at 4.1K. I feel like I just keep saying that every single day, but catcher, I'm just rounding out my stack. You can go throw Grandal in tournaments if you're stacking up the White Sox. You can go Zunino in for tournaments if you're stacking up the Rays. Contreras isn't the worst idea in the world, but it's probably Coors or Perez, or if you really want to just full on punt Moltenado, but I don't need to do that because I got 4K pitchers on my on my lineups. Catcher, just round out your stack. It's that simple.
Yeah, by the way, just pulling up Weather Edge on the fly. And also, when I mentioned Roth will be on the next show he'll be hosting. And he said in the basketball show earlier today, he's working double duty as far as crunch time. Said if there's no weather issues, he'll be sloshed later today. And I don't think there's any major weather issues. So you'll make it a drunk Roth. That'll be a good
I
time.
love Drunk Roth.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun for sure. I believe it's Cheese and SDL cards. They're not drunk, to my knowledge. They'll be sober and giving expert analysis, but Roth will just be hosting and asking questions. 13.8% bump in homers as far as these weather conditions for San Diego, Colorado. Oh, somebody's thirsty. In 104 previous games, according to Weather Edge. And I think, was it the Met game as well that was seeing a jump? I'm going to refresh on that. Nope, not so much. Well, that's a weird one because, never mind. It changed. Only a 3-game sample size. I'm like, why? It's a decrease in 7% homers, but a 20% increase in runs. I'm like, that must be a small sample size. And Cardi, you're probably thinking the same thing. Yes, just 3 games.
That's the hottest game. I think that the weather for that game should be pretty favorable. It's 90 degrees in that game.
We only have 3 light games. Oh, you know what it is? It's Atlanta. That's a new ballpark. That's why we don't have a big sample size on it. Your catchers, Cardi. DK raised Perez. Did they raise it enough?
They raised it enough, at least considering that there are cheaper guys that are now more underpriced and there's much more to like on offense. Like we have Austin Hedges in cores for 3.6K. I think he's probably your cash guy. I wouldn't say you're wrong to play Perez. I think he's still a good play. I think he's a top play on the slate. Keuchel's got a fairly wide platoon split. Perez is one of the few catchers that hits in a really good spot in the lineup. So I think Perez is great. But I prefer Hedges, or we're going down to a really cheap guy if you need the extra salary. Grant mentioned Maldonado. I'm very high on the Astros today. I think Maldonado is a really strong option. So that's kind of, I think, where you're looking in cash games. And then in GPPs.
Just to be clear, he's a strong option, Maldonado, because he's just super cheap. But he's just like, you're getting in and get out for 2.3K. You don't think he's
right,
good, right?
Exactly. It's not like he's one of like the best options of the day. You're expecting him to crush or anything. But he's like 2.6K or whatever he is. Like he's really cheap. So, and he's in a good spot. But yeah, otherwise you're just plugging in your catcher with, with your stacks. Like I like a Brave stack. So if you want to put Travis Garneau in with your Brave stack, do that. Put Maldonado in with your Astros stack, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you talk about the Heat there in Atlanta at 4.3K for Darno batting 6th. You got Ramos on the other side at 3.4K. I don't mind that either. Zunino, like he crushes BP, man. I mean, that guy, when the ball doesn't go past him, he's got a tremendous amount of power and nice ballpark upgrade here in Baltimore. So I don't mind him either. And also he's on the road, so he's locked in for 9. So he's still really good chance he gets that 4th at bat. So the batting order doesn't matter too much for me when they're on the road. So I'm okay with that in tournaments. Anything else, or shall we move on and talk about first base? Let's move on and talk about first base. Cardi, open it up. Who does the bat like at first?
It likes Alonso and Freeman as the top guys. They're both expensive, so the only way you have a chance to get either of them is if you do play a guy like Bubic as your SP2. I don't think you have to go with one of them, even if you go with Bubic, but you can afford them. Like I said, this is the hottest game of the day. The weather is good. It's in Atlanta, not in New York. So the Mets bats, like Alonso, are getting that park upgrade. Porcello and Newcomb neither one are really especially good. And they just saw each other. So they're going to have that kind of familiarity effect of having just, seen the other team. So yeah, I think Alonso and Freeman are great. If you need to save a little bit of money, Will Myers is your Padres bat in cores that projects really well. So I think he is a perfectly fine guy to go with in cash games also. If you're going with a McCullers build, Myers is probably the guy you're going to end up on. There's no one I love that's like a lot cheaper. Jake Cronenworth, I think I saw he's in the lineup for the Pods. You could maybe think about going with him if you really need to save some money. But in cash games, I think that's kind of the only guys I'd really be thinking about.
Let's see. Anything else kind of jumping off the page for me before?
Darren Roof is 2.4K. If he's in the lineup, especially if he's in the middle of the lineup, you can consider him with the platoon advantage against Minor, especially with the way the ball's jumping in that park. He might be a good GPP play also if you're going with a more expensive pitching combo.
I saw somebody in chat asking about Taijuan Walker. I have no interest in rostering Taijuan Walker, but I do think Matt Olson. I mean, Oakland's going to be just lost on this slate. I know that's your team, Grant. You play him all the time. Any interest in an Oakland stack? And, of course, if you're stacking of Oakland, you got to like Matt Olson.
Yep, Matt Olson. Love him today. 5K, a little bit expensive, but Walker, like, we're not exactly sure what we're going to get out of him. It's not a terrible ballpark playing up there in Seattle. I do – the Oakland, like, there's a lot of good stacks. The only moderately off-the-board stack that I'm going with today is probably Oakland, which isn't really saying much because they still have a 5.25 implied team total. Like, they're one of my favorite stacks on the board. Big fan of it today. But Matt Olson is one of the better GPP plays. in my opinion. He's only projected at 3% because of his price tag. But he gets the platoon split. Outside of him, we mentioned Cronenworth, and he's batting
did you lose Grant?
For the Padres, which isn't ideal, but he's still way too cheap. He's still way too cheap considering the ballpark, even if he's batting ninth. Alonso's a good play. Like Santana's probably a bit too cheap going up against Dobnak. Like 3.9K is not enough for him. And then outside of that, like Voit is probably a bit too cheap there at 3.9K. But that's pretty much it.
Over on FanDuel, G-Man Choi is really cheap. He's probably your cash guy over there.
How do you feel about him switch hitting all of a sudden? He learned how to switch hit during the break, which is so cool, right?
Yeah, it's cool. You don't see guys do that very often. There's been a couple in recent years, but it's rare. I love it. I think it's great.
I think he was at quarantine with his brother and like over in Korea, and like he just sort of like, I guess I learned how to switch it. Like some people learned how to read some books, some people learned to write another language. Some people just watch like Netflix all day. He said, "I'm gonna learn how to switch it," which is pretty cool. And his first at bat on the other side, I believe he banged one out. So that was I think it was his first at bat. Doesn't matter. First game. There you go. Sure, why not? Cardi, FanDuel specific. You mentioned Choi. He's pretty cheap. Matt Adams is pretty reasonable too. You got to pick one of those two. Who do you prefer?
I probably go Choi, but I mean, I'm always a guy who likes Matt Adams, so I'm fine with that too.
I assume Adams is DHing. I don't know this for certain, but that would make sense in my brain.
I would have to think so, right?
Yeah. By the way, I'm on here taking a look here at the chat. The chat's asking some questions. I'm doing my best to keep up. And yeah, if like have your questions like based upon the position we're talking about, well, you're more likely to get the answer. They also want to know, Grant, you have a Kenny Chesney cup? Is that what you're drinking out of?
Yeah, we got like 14 of them in my house. I don't know how or why. They
They
disappeared one day.
Do you have any ties to Kenny Chesney?
I don't think so. I've been to one of his concerts before. Maybe that's where I got him. I have no idea. Life is confusing.
Maybe you got a souvenir cup.
Chesney concert, blacks out on White Claw, and buys all of the merch.
Oh god, there's nothing better in life than like getting hammered and then going on an Amazon binge. Like waking up 2 days later to 14 boxes on your front porch.
I mean, there are better things, but that's a thing, I suppose.
Name one.
Let's talk about the Keystone position. That's better. Second base. Grant, open it up. What are you doing with second?
Second base, I mean, there's obviously Profar is not the worst idea in the world. Altuve going up against Andrisi, not a great hitter, or not a great pitcher. Moustakas is way too cheap at 3.6K. DK, fix your pricing. Just do it. I don't like having easy decisions or that are made hard because they're too cheap. Scope is super cheap at 2.9K if you want a little bit of leverage off of Castillo. Dude has some power, and that's just a ridiculous price tag. Plus, we don't know if Castillo's going to end up getting a little wild. Like maybe he can bring in some bad bullpen arms. Outside of them, Odor has a platoon split batting third versus Webb, and we already talked about how good of a ballpark San Francisco is. LeMahieu going up against Weber, not the worst idea in the world. That's pretty much it.
Yankees got over 6 total today. Torres back in the lineup. I believe he got hit yesterday. It looks like he's perfectly fine. DJ leading off. Torres batting third. Yeah, Moose is just way too cheap at 3.6K. They're asking in the chat if I bought any baseball prospect cards. I have not, but I'm not sure if you guys know this. You probably don't. RotoGrinders, we've been doing a card collecting show. And baseball cards are back, Cardi. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Sports cards in general.
I mean, I love to hear that. I collected sports cards when I was a kid. Like, it was so much fun. So, yeah, I'm all about it. Go ahead.
You had the 89 upper deck, Ken Griffey Jr. number 1?
What's that?
Ken Griffey Jr. number 1, 89 upper deck. You had to have that card. That was a staple of every kid's card collection.
I did.
This?
Oh, for real? Do you happen to have it right on you?
I mean, is that what's on the screen?
I see Cardi. I don't see you. You have to talk.
I'm talking.
Words.
Wrong camera. I was putting it at the wrong camera. I feel dumb.
You're on the premium below the waist cam. You got to raise it up there for Ken Griffey. There you go.
Yeah. The other
what
one
else do you have on your desk?
Multiple coffee cups. Share pillow.
Nitro. I got Nitro, of course, the national champions, and Walter White, Breaking Bad. Cardi, what do you have? Anything interesting?
Not really at the moment. No. I got this. This is from my desk on baseball tonight. Derek Cardi, fantasy baseball genius.
Oh, that's awesome.
I do have a decent amount of hotel keys on my desk.
That's not your only stack of hotel keys, I happen to know, which is so weird.
I have like 4 of those. I have like 800 hotel keys now.
That's a really weird thing to have. It's really super creepy.
I collect. I mean, it's not as weird as my soap collection.
That is, yeah. I don't know if you know this, Cardi. Another show, but he's got like conditioner and shampoo from every hotel chain imaginable. It's the weirdest thing.
I stay at a lot of hotels.
You've got the best shampoo, Grant. That's where I want to stay.
It's honestly my favorite one used to be the hotel in Vegas. They used to have Mountain Goats shampoo, so cilantro conditioner and peppermint shampoo. But also the Balboa Bay Resort down in Newport has,
of course,
what is it? Seagrass. Something I don't know. Man, I'm tired, guys. Basketball's starting way too early for me.
Hot corner, third base, Cardi. You can also play Moustakas there. He's going to be super popular on DK, especially if he has the multi-position eligibility, and he's cheap. If not Moustakas, who you playing?
Yeah, I think Moose is better at second because at third in cash games you're playing Manny Machado. That's the only correct decision.
It's not Arenado.
Machado just projects straight up better because like I said, I like the Padres more. So I'm taking Machado. He's 500 less. He's the better play. He's the clear guy. And that's pretty much it. In GPPs, you can, do whatever you want. Like I said, I like a Houston stack. You can play Bregman. I think an Indian stack is kind of sneaky. You can play Ramirez, but it's Machado as the clear best guy today.
The chat is just throwing out the weird things they collect. And the first thing that jumped off I collect barf bags when I fly. Is that odd? I mean, that's a thing. Are they distinctly different? They're all kind of the same, aren't
they? Have you ever used a barf bag?
Like generic white usually.
I've never had, but I imagine you have because you asked the question, Grant. You've used one before or no?
No, I've thrown up on a plane before, but I made it to the bathroom like an adult. Back in college, you could upgrade to first class for Virgin Air, and it was only $100, and you get unlimited booze. So I was like 23 years old. I'm like, let's see how many drinks I can have on this 2-hour flight. The answer was 11.
To outdo Rick Boggs is what you're saying.
Yeah, I was trying to Boggs it. And
but you're going to have one on air at some point today. I don't know if you're going to stall to the end once again.
Until the end, because I don't know if this is going to make me want to vomit. I do not like passion fruit.
Arenado or Machado, Grant, or you want to go off the board?
I probably lean slightly with Machado, but really, I'm fine with either.
And nobody's playing Matt Chapman? Just saying.
I will be playing Matt Chapman.
Okay.
I already said, just a default answer is the A's for me every single time.
All right, fair enough. Anything else worth discussing here as far as third base? I think Raleigh's got a good price on FanDuel, 4-3 and DK you can manage, but I prefer him on FanDuel. I think the Atlanta guys in general are better played over there. Eugenio Suarez, prefer him versus a lefty, but I don't mind him. Kind of doing a little mini stack here for Cincinnati. Otherwise, let's jump back to shortstop, Cardi. What do you have for me?
Fernando Tatis Jr. is the best player on the entire slate today. You have to be playing him in your
he might be the best player in all of sports, but that's fine.
I was told he was an overrated prospect by the fantasy sports expert, according to ESPN.
Yeah, wasn't it some guy that was on Baseball Tonight or something?
Genius, if the word was described him.
Yeah, we gotta adjust with new data. When prospects come up and they don't middle the way a lot of them do, you have to change your expectations. Tatis is a lot better than we.
I tell most women to change their expectations when they meet me.
That's probably a smart thing to do.
Right.
But he's still disappointed.
Gray allows a lot of stolen bases, so there's great stolen base potential here for him. He's awesome. Over on FanDuel, Willy Adames is cheap, and he's hitting third, so I think he's great. Ahmed Rosario is pretty cheap over there, so I like him. But in cash games, you're playing Tatis on Draftkings, and that's that's what you're doing.
Trevor Story in play, of course, 5.7K. You prefer him versus a lefty, but you don't mind him there at Coors. Just because the price and the talent, Jack in the Bag upside, Francisco Lindor, potentially top 7, top 8 player in baseball. 4.4K is egregious. That price is just wrong, but there's a big opportunity cost to shortstop.
I like how you said top 7, top 8. Why not just say top 10? That's a fairly normal thing to say.
Because, I got to account for Chris Bryant. I think he's in the top 10. Or is that top 20?
Razzed.
Hi, Bobby. I kid. So what's your take? What I'm saying is there's a big opportunity cost at shortstop. There's some real studs here. If it's not Lindor, it's going to be Tatis. If it's not Tatis, it's going to be Story. And if it's not Story, it's probably some other dude. What do you have for me, Grant, as far as shortstop?
I mean, Coors, obviously. Simeon for Oakland, if you need me to say Oakland players every single time now. Like Jorge Polanco makes a decent tournament play. He's going to come in at 2% ownership, wouldn't be my guess. Obviously, it's a tough matchup going up against Clevenger, but still, he's a very good hitter. I will definitely have some of him in my lineup. And he doesn't strike out a huge clip. He's a lefty, which Clevenger is distinctly worse against lefties. So I don't mind him a little bit. But, yeah, it's mostly just the Coors guys, and that's mostly it.
Anything else at shortstop? You want to jump to the outfield?
Swanson in your Brave stacks, but, shortstop's pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. Braves lineup it's a little bit weaker today. No Albies for what it's worth. If you guys put him in your lineup early today, take him out. Let's jump to the outfield. What are we doing in the outfield here, Cardi?
So outfield, I think, is kind of the pivot point with your decision at SP2, whether you're going up to a guy like McCullers or down to a guy like Bubic. Outfield, I think, is where those lineups are going to be differentiated. You have a lot of great guys at the top that I really want to get exposure to, but then you have guys like Michael Brantley and Akiyama on the low end that will allow you to get up to a guy like McCullers. So if you're not going with one of those cheapies like that, you're paying up for Tommy Pham in Coors. You're paying up for George Springer against Andriese, who is not a very good pitcher, gives up a lot of steals. I really like the Astros today. Aaron Judge is too cheap. The Vegas line for the Yankees is too high, but they're still one of the better teams of the day. 4.6 for Judge is way too cheap, so he's great. Yeah. Grisham in San Diego is great. The bat really likes Acuna. I'm a little wary about that. It wants to play him in cash games.
I heard he was overrated, according to the bat.
I mean, he was. But it's hot.
The Razzes keep coming.
Yeah, it's hot there. He's seen Porcello recently, which will help. He's striking out a ton, but he's still making hard contact. The surface StatCast numbers aren't great so far, but the underlying stuff is basically in line with what he's always done. So I think he's a great GPP play at the very least, especially as part of the Brave stack. But really, I think your decision at outfield is spending up on these guys or going down to the Brantley Akiyama tier.
We got about 5 minutes or so before you step aside and make way for crunch time. Premium members get most likely a sloshed Kevin Roth right there. That's worth the price of admission. And then you get two really sharp dudes in Cheese is Good, Dave Potts. He won $1 million twice. I've won $1 million maker. He's won 2, so he's better than me. I've won none in baseball for the record. Me and my 1,000 best friends, whatever it was, won yesterday. That's in the small print. Ask some questions. Fire away in chat. Feel free to like and subscribe. We much appreciate that. Hey, Cardi, I know you have us in the bat as far as pinch hit likelihood. And obviously the season just kind of sort of started and it's all new, DH in the National League. But my eyeball test, from what I've noticed, I haven't gone through, the two teams I've noticed pinch hitting a lot, especially in the outfield, is the Mets and the Reds. You notice this?
I haven't paid enough attention yet, but that does kind of make sense, especially a team like the Reds where they have so many outfield options. Like it would make sense that they're trying to play the matchups with them because, underlying talent-wise, they have a bunch of guys that are kind of comparable. So that does make sense.
Nick Castellanos is continuing his revenge tour. He revenged all over the Cubs. Now he's going to revenge all over the Tigers. Don't mind him again today. 4K, pretty reasonable price. Grant, Coors Field, prioritize the outfielders. Power rank. What do you have for me?
Probably Blackman and Dahl than everyone else.
Pham or Grisham?
I'd probably go with Grisham and then Pham, but those guys are really close.
Why does DK hate Michael Brantley? Anybody?
I don't like. Has he had a single game this season where he didn't at least get a hit?
Why is he 2.8K? Like, what up with that, Cardi?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, he's the main reason that you might not play Bubic in cash games. It's because you have Brantley, who will save you so much money.
Yeah, that's probably my counter argument to playing Bubic because I think my bats are still pretty good. Brantley's fine. He doesn't do like one thing particularly well. Like he doesn't excel or anything, but he's good at everything for the most part.
Yeah, I think he's a little overrated because his power isn't really what you want out of a DFS player. But at his price tags, like it doesn't need to be.
We mentioned no Dodgers. Like that's another team. Nobody's going to play Muncy and Betts and Bellinger, Zach Allen. legit prospect, looked really good last year. I believe in the arm, believe in the talent. Locked in for 9 in Arizona, just over a 5 total for what it's worth. Grant, there's some questions here in the chat. How would you stack the Padres?
Tatis, Machado, anything else?
Cardi, no love for the the Chicago Sox stacking tournaments. I think it's perfectly reasonable. And if we
didn't talk about stacks, did we?
No.
My only off the board stack today is probably going to be the Rangers.
Because of the ballpark?
Yeah, I mean, because the ballpark, Webb's just all right, but they have some power, and they're going to go almost entirely unowned. And, they're not that expensive. I mean, outside of Gallo and Odor, everyone's under 4K.
Gallo's going to hit one into the drink today. What say you, Cardi?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Who are your favorite stacks?
I think if I'm stacking, I'm looking more at – I think the Astros are great. I think both sides of the Braves game, the Braves in particular. I think the Reds are a really good cheap stack. The Indians, I think, are going to be off the board and are pretty good. That's where I'm looking today.
Cardi, do you prefer Rizzo or Myers? I mean, it's probably depends on what the rest of your lineup looks like.
It depends a little bit. If the rest of your lineup is super chalk, maybe you go Rizzo, but you probably don't. You probably just do someone else entirely because Myers is clearly the better guy. Rizzo is not in a great spot. There's wind blowing in Wrigley today, so Rizzo's not a guy that I really like.
We haven't played the home run game this year. Or, Cardi, give me your favorite stacks. We haven't done that yet.
I just said them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe pay attention, Dean. It's not like it's your job or something.
First of all, you can't multitask. You can't drink and be an analyst and play with your toys on the desk and your Ken Griffey Jr. card and things like that.
I did, in fact, do that during the show and was an analyst. So
yeah, but you held it underneath the camera. Be a professional.
No, I put it on the wrong camera, sir. I forgot about all my cameras for my other.
Why do you have a super secret camera?
I mean, go to my private website. Grant doesn't know there's cameras in his room.com.
Do you have an OnlyFans?
I do not. I'm boycotting them. I take too much of a cut.
I need the backstory on that. Grant, what's your opinion on JD Davis? He's one of those guys that might get the hook, just for the record. They have a lot of different players. But go ahead. JD Davis?
I mean, he's fine. He's 4K.
On FanDuel analysis. So he's really good over there.
Cardi, is Daniel Murphy toast or is he still competent?
He's probably a league average hitter. He's not a guy I'm playing today, but he's not awful.
He's probably about as competent at his job as you are at yours, Dean. Take that how you will.
So lock button. That's what I'm hearing. They're asking about Trevor Williams. Do we stack against Trevor Williams, Cardi?
No, like I said, there's wind blowing in Wrigley. There's just so many offenses to like today, and the ownership is going to be fairly spread on them because there's so many to like. You don't need to get super cute with your stacks today. You can play the Astros or the Braves or the Reds, and you won't have to spend even a whole lot on a couple of those, and you're going to get them at fairly low ownership. You don't have to be crazy today.
We got to go. We got to make way for crunch time. Before we do so, hit the like, subscribe, the whole deal here at RG. Much appreciate it. If you guys are premium members, crunch time's coming up next. Give me one player that's breaking the slate. Grant, you go. Actually, Cardi, you go. Grant, you drink. Cardi, give me a player that's breaking the slate.
This smells like gasoline.
It's not even clear. We're supposed to be able to see it.
Really.
Be a professional. We got to see it disappear.
It's like gasoline. You said it's like a.
It's passion fruit gasoline flavor.
We gotta go. We're up against the clock.
Bubic is breaking the slate.
That was terrible.
That's my guy.
Grant, who's breaking the slate?
Matt Olson.
Cardi, Grant, Dean, like, subscribe, holler.